Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this Excosoft webinar on why move to Skribenta Web. I'm really glad to have you on board. And the purpose of this webinar is to present you with the motivation to move to start to use Skribenta Web. Let me just introduce myself. So my name is Jonathan Landin, and I will be the presenter for you today. I worked for Excosoft for nearly 10 years now, and I'm a technical communicator, I guess like most of you. I enjoy working with XML-based content management. So I've worked in the industry for somewhat 25 years now. So the rest of the presentation, I will actually hide the camera so we can focus on the slides and the demo. So I'll hide myself now. Okay. In this webinar, I assume that you are familiar with Skribenta client, that you are familiar with the work in Skribenta with publications and master files and recipes. So I assume that you have worked with Skribenta for some time, especially Skribenta client and XML client, but also with Explorer, Callout, and Portal to some extent. Okay, so the agenda for the next 45 minutes is that I will present what is Skribenta Web for you who hasn't encountered Skribenta Web before, and then delve into the differences between Skribenta Web and the existing clients, Skribenta client, XML client, Explorer, Callout, and Portal. And then dig into the new features of Skribenta Web compared to Skribenta client. And now when I mention Skribenta client from now on, I mean all the existing clients, which is Skribenta client, XML client, the editor, Explorer for version handling, Callout for making callouts in images, and Portal. At the end, I will wrap up and present a way to make a transition from Skribenta client to Skribenta Web, how we can support you in doing that. And at the end, we have some questions and answers. So during the webinar, as you may have encountered, you cannot activate your microphone or the chat function is not enabled. So my colleague Kari Blomger is in the meeting. So please send questions to Kari using the quick message function in Teams. And then Kari will collect questions and then post them in the meeting at the end. I will try to answer them. This webinar is recorded and will be available online, so you can watch it later. And soon we will also release a blog post, which will summarize the key points in this webinar, so you can read about the different features in Skribenta Web, for example. Okay, great. So let's start actually by answering the question for the webinar before we actually get started. Why move to Skribenta Web? One reason is that Skribenta Web brings many new features than compared to the existing functionality in Skribenta client. And these features are designed to help you to be more effective, to optimize the way you work. But the reason is also that our plan is to discontinue the development of Skribenta client and XML client, editor, Explorer, Callout, and Portal by the end of next year. Of course, we need to discuss with you as a customer, depending on your processes and your needs on what is suitable for how long you want support, etc. But this is the general plan to make a transition, to help you make a transition to Skribenta Web. So then what is Skribenta Web? So all of you today, you work with Skribenta. So this is the Skribenta server. The symbol represents the Skribenta server, where you have the XML files and images, etc. So today, you all work with Skribenta client, which is installed on your local machine. And from Skribenta client, you access the XML client, which is the editor to edit and master file recipes. And you may also use Explorer for version management tasks. And some of you may use Callout to create callout upon images, and also Portal to administrate the users, etc. So this is the current situation for all of you. What Skribenta Web brings is that it actually replaces all of these 5 clients. So there's one single client, which is web-based. So instead of these, you use a web browser. And then you can access and work and produce the same result and goals that you can do in the Skribenta client. And using Skribenta Web here doesn't mean that you need to rearrange your content. You can work with your publications, master files, and recipes, but you work with them in Skribenta Web instead of Skribenta client. So there's no migrating that you need to do to start to work with Skribenta Web in regards to your information architecture. Now, of course, there are some differences between Skribenta Web and the existing clients that you're using, Skribenta client. And one major difference is that using Skribenta Web means that you don't need to install anything on your local computer. So Skribenta Web is web-based. You work in a web browser. You can use Chrome and other web browsers are supported. And since you don't need to install anything on your local machine, it also means that there's no dependency to Java. All of you know that using Skribenta client, you need to have a 64-bit version of Java installed on the machine. So this dependency is no longer the case, which is really good. Now, there are some architectural differences in Skribenta Web compared to Skribenta client. And that is that Skribenta Web synchronizes the client and the server more often each minute, which means that you get an update of what your colleagues are doing in terms of creating new versions, new files, etc. So the hassle in Skribenta client of having to refresh the client to see new versions will no longer be the case. Now in Skribenta Web, if you do not work with a file for more than 1 minute, then Skribenta will save and unlock the file. This is after 1 minute is the default time. So that means that the issue of having locked files will be less now in Skribenta Web, since this is automatically saved and unlocked. Skribenta Web supports unlimited amount of undo and redo. In Skribenta client, there was a limit of approximately 100 steps. I don't know if any one of you have reached the 100 undos, but anyhow, this is unlimited. Skribenta Web also improves the way you work with big files, large XML files, let's say 10 megabyte of XML. There's improvements of loading and opening and working with large files. There's also an improvement regarding the way of checking in a publication in Skribenta Web. Okay, so how does then Skribenta? Let's start with the current situation. So this is Skribenta client, which you are working in today. So you have the publications aspect, you have the workspace aspect with the folders and master files and recipes. We have now articles, and of course you can access the master file and a recipe. If we put the client in the corner, and let's add to Skribenta Web. So to the right here, this is Skribenta Web. And Skribenta Web has a number of aspects, as you can see to the left. So publications and workspace, they are sort of similar to the publications and workspace aspect in the Skribenta client. So from the publication, you can access your publications and publication groups. And from the workspace aspect, you can navigate the workspace folders and the different files. You can see the versions of the files, which is the case also in Skribenta client. Now, Skribenta Web introduces a number of more aspects. You have the translation projects and improvement projects, a possibility to search the whole database. There's also a configuration to switch between workspaces, log out, help aspect, customization, and administration. I'm not going to go into details of these aspects today, but since Skribenta Web is one client, means that we have a number of more clients. So for instance, what you can do in Explorer, you can now do in administration aspect. There's also an overview aspect where you can collect like a dashboard for the workspace for your project or for team members within the workspace. Now, one major difference in Skribenta Web is the way that you expand and compress content and files. Now, that's the hallmark of Excosoft, is how you navigate in content, that you zoom into specific content by expanding and compressing, or collapsing, they might say. So for instance, if we have a publication here, if I click on the publication, I expand. Let me maximize Skribenta Web. So you can see the master file and the recipe directly as children through the publication. Furthermore, if you want to edit a master file in Skribenta Web, it's not the case that you open a separate tab window or a separate application. You simply click on the master file, then you can start to edit the file directly. So what you see here, this is the same behavior as you have in XML client. So you can expand your way down to a specific section and subsection, etc. And you have variables and so forth. So you can expand all the way from the top of the workspace of the publication down to a single inline element. You don't have to open a new view or a new browser. And furthermore, the functions that you access are also expandable. So let's say if I go to the workspace and I can view my, here I have a set of master files. I can right click on a master file and then open a context menu to do a number of operations. And what I do is that I expand an embedded toolbar where I can access and I can do things on the file like this. So we're taking the expand and compress principle a step further to expand the functions, not only the content. Okay, so that was a quick glance of the difference between Skribenta Client and Skribenta Web. So what new features are available in Skribenta Web? I've summarized here in a slide. There's 45 new features. So there's plenty of new things that allows you to be more effective. In this webinar, of course, I will not go through each one of these 45 features. So I will present them in groups, and then I have selected 10 functions, 10 features which I think are valuable for you as an audience, and I will demo and show how you can work with them. Remember that now I will display a list of features, and it's not the purpose that you should read and understand at this point. There will be a blog post detailing these 45 features, and also, of course, in a discussion with us, we are glad to support and help you to understand how these features can be used to optimize your process. But there is a number of features related to browsing and presenting content, and also the way you can search. So there's this Google-like search results, and you can edit search results directly from the search result list. In terms of managing versions, a number of new features and possibilities. And also managing images, to embed images and transform images. There's also new features related to migrating from legacy content like Word, HTML, and Markdown, and also uploading, drag and drop, for instance, images. And where you publish, you can now publish a master file, for example. And also related to managing users and licenses. It's now possible to have different roles, such as translator and content provider, apart from admin and writer. And the interface will be adapted depending on the role. And also the way you can customize Skribenta Web to be suitable for your process in terms of integrating to translation vendors, for instance, or shortcuts. Now we can do that in a file called a contributor. When it comes to translation localization, this is a functionality that has been redesigned in Skribenta Web to make it more flexible and easy to work with translation and improvement projects. So this is really a lot of things that new features that happens. This is just some of the list. There will be an upcoming webinar detailing and presenting the translation functionality and how you can translate in Skribenta Web. So watch out for an invitation to an upcoming webinar to find out how you can translate in Skribenta Web. Finally, we have a lot of new features relating to editing, using Grammarly for spell check and working with tables, and also single sourcing. Now, from this list of 45 features, I've selected 10 features which I'd like to show you. And first is how we can work with several browser tabs. We can go in different workspaces and different tabs, for instance. Now, something that many of you have asked for is to be able to see where a file is being used and what resources a file is using. So you can generate reports from that. It's also not possible to see intermediate draft versions. So each time you save, an intermediate draft version is created, which you can access, you can revert, and you can view and compare. You can add images just by copy and paste an external image right into your master file. You can copy and paste legacy content from Word or Markdown, for example, and also adapt the interface for different roles. I will show you logging as a translator. This find similar paragraphs is really useful to be able to reuse translations if you know that a specific source language text already exists in the memory. You don't have to create very similar content. And now Grammarly is default spelling grammar, check in Skribenta. And now it's also possible to transform a section in a master file into a module, which then can be included. So you can actually modularize your master file from the master file itself. And finally, now it's possible to see the values for variables within the context of the publication. So let us look into these 10 features. Again, let me head over to Skribenta. And actually, I prepared a master file with these 10 different use cases. So the first one, you can now display Skribenta in multiple browser tabs. So if you head over to the browser tab and you right click and you say duplicate, would be in English. This is in Swedish, so it's duplicera. You will then present with two web tabs. You can navigate to a different file, one tab, and have set to another workspace, another file in a certain tab. So this is handy if you work in multiple workspaces and work with multiple files and you want to toggle between them. Of course, there's also a possibility to maximize things as in an XML client. So that is possible. Now the features related to copy and pasting images. There are some easy way to do it. So if, let's say that I had to find an image on my local computer. So I have an image here. So if I just this PNG image, I right click and say copy. And then I go to my master file, put my cursor and set Control V. I will actually paste. What I create is an embedded image. So as you can see here, this is, I haven't actually created an image file. but this is an embedded file, and I can transform this into a file using save as. And this is also handy if you work with screen dumps. You create screen dump and you can just paste it directly into your master file and then transform it to a file. Let's say that you have imported images. So you can also insert just by saying Control-C and then put your cursor and then Control-V, and then you have created the image. And this is an image with a link, usually, but similar to, or exactly as done in XML client, where you copy the local name, you insert an image element, and then paste the local name, and then insert the image element. So this possibility is easier to insert images just by copy and paste. Now, the possibility to see which resources a certain file is using and who is using a file. Or if I select this file, right click, and I open up the context menu, I have a set of options to see used by and is using. So if I select is using, I can see that this file is using this particular image which I inserted. I also have 2 links to legacy content files. I can also do used by to see that this particular master file is being used within another master file. It's also used in a publication. And I can further do reporting on I can expand the content, see which file it is this, and I can also do used by for this file. But I find this very handy to be able to traverse and see the include structure and how things are included. And also now the possibility to see intermediate draft versions. So depending on the editing that I've been doing, I can right click on the master file and I can go to versions and I can select compare. And this allows me to see, I can compare, now I only have one A1 version, but draft versions here allow me to see all the different things that I've done as I have saved. You can see if I click, I can expand and I can see that, okay, here we have difference. And this is the images that I added. You see that this is all the different edits that I've done. And each time I save, I create an intermediate draft version. I can revert and compare. I think this is very useful for you to be able to trace and see what has happened to a file. When it comes to migrating legacy content, I have to sample. I have a markdown sample here. So if you can see here, this is markdown syntax, just a sample file. And I have also a link to a markdown file. So if I actually double click on this file, it will look like this. I can just simply select everything, select Control-C to copy, and then head over to Skribenta and then place my cursor and hit Control-V. And then Skribenta has created Flex XML on the fly. So here's a paragraph, we have a table, some wrapper, list, subsection, etc. So this is handy to just copy and paste your legacy content. And this goes also for if you have a Word file. So here I have a link to a Word file, and I can open this up and open Word, and we get a Word file that has table, lists, headers, etc. So in this case, I Control-A to select all, and then I just copy. So copy the entire file. This could be a large Word file, hundreds of pages. And then head over to Skribenta and say, place my cursor in my master file and say Control-V. And Skribenta then converts the Word content into Flex XML. So we have the table, we have list, subsection, and subsection. So we retain the information architecture. So it's easier than to migrate legacy content just by copy and pasting. Okay, so regarding roles, if I log out and I log in as another role, you will see different. The user interface of Skribenta Web is limited to only the functions that a particular role should be able to work with. So let me log out. I go to configure aspect and we select log out. Then I log in as in this case, translator. This would be similar to working as a content provider. This is just a conceptual view here. So at the time being, I don't have a translation job ongoing. So the translator will see a number of blocks and be able to translate. So this could be the view of a content provider, for example, a developer or someone who is just contributing with content and doesn't need to see all the integrated details of workspaces, etc. They only need to see the files that they should deliver content in. So you see also that the menu is limited to a certain set of functions for that is related to this role. And of course, how and which functions to present depends on your process and your roles. So this is one part that can customize them, would be suitable for what your content providers and your translators should be able to do. So let me again, I log out and I log in as myself again. And let's head over to the webinar use case list. Okay. And as I said, Grammarly is the default spell and grammar checker. It's possible to integrate other types of terminology and clustered and word spell checking engines like Acrolinks. That's basically up to you. But here you can see that Grammarly has detected a misspelled sentence. So I can simply hover and select and do it multiple times to correct. And then Grammarly says that I can open a panel and see that, yeah, this seems to be almost 99% on the track. So I do think that this would improve the way you can work with spell checking and grammar checking. And of course, all the features of Grammarly, of using dictionaries, etc., will be available also. Now, let's say here that you have, you're starting to type a certain sentence and you know that there is a similar text in the translation memory. Instead of writing something that is almost similar to what you already have and already have translated, you can look into the memory to find similar paragraphs. And that is, of course, to reduce cost of translating. So if you right-click on a paragraph, and then you open the context menu, and then you select do it like this, since my screen resolution doesn't allow me to see. You can see that I can open up a similar function on the paragraph. And this similar function allows me to search in the memory to find text that are similar to the one that I typed. And here I can see that I have already a block saying search all Skribenta manuals. So the text I had here said search Skribenta manuals. And here I can also I can expand and look into the translations and examine the block as such. So if I click on use here, I will actually use this already translated text. So now it says all. So this is convenient to be able to reuse, to be able to look into not duplicating and making creating similar blocks with almost a similar text. This, of course, would reduce your translation cost. Let's say that you have a master file and you would like to transform this into a module and make it include. So that's now possible directly from the master file. So you can right click and click on the section, and then you can transform. And you can transform this into a file. So now this becomes a link, and again you can then transform this into an include. So this is now I created an include. So this is now becomes I created a file up here, and the file is presented and saved in the same folder as the master file that I started off from. So if I type something, you will see that this is the same module. So I do hope that this could actually enhance the way you work on modularizing your master files. And of course, you can do this on any section level as such. Okay, so the final use case, or the final feature, is that if I would head over to my publication, open it up, open the master file, you can see that here I have a variable, here I have an if wrapper, and here I have a variable, and you are presented with the variable values. If we look at the, here you can see that this is the variable value as some simple variables, and you see the value with the context of the publication. And obviously this is really useful to be able to evaluate and see how variables will be processed once you publish. So values are evaluated and presented in the context of the publication. Okay, so these are 10 features of Skribenta Web, and of course there are many others similar to these, and we're glad, happy to present all of them to you and look how they can be used in your process and with your roles and the way you use Skribenta. And also be sure to look up the upcoming blog post that presents these different features. Something I would like to mention here in the webinar is that we're really excited about the ongoing development, which is our new content delivery platform called Skribenta Sites. So from Skribenta Web, you will be able to publish and create a site. So all of your hundreds of publications, you can organize them in a certain structure, you can create topics, and you can then publish all of your content into one single documentation portal where the user can search all publications and find filtered content. So this is a forthcoming development of the Finder product we had previously. So Skribenta Sites is, well, sort of version 2.0. Don't miss out an upcoming webinar about Skribenta Sites, which will enhance and make it easier to create online content delivery content. Okay, so now we might ask, okay, how do I make the transition to Skribenta Web? So we planning to, there's an offer, a way of supporting you in making the transition. So what we suggest here is that you set up a planning meeting. So discuss how you can move to Skribenta, how you can make the move. And of course, we need to look into your process, specific things, and you have a lot of questions. Of course, we need to review any service level agreements, including how to deal with customizations. And also, if you need or want to work with Skribenta Client and Skribenta Web in parallel, there is some restrictions to set a policy of what to do where. For instance, we recommend to translate and check in publications in Skribenta Web and not in Skribenta Client if you work in parallel. Of course, this involves to upgrade Skribenta to Skribenta Web, the new version. And if you have a stage server, that might be updated. First, you can evaluate before updating the production server. And if this, of course, also includes basic web training and support, and also depends on the agreement that we have with you, and also your needs, of course. So get in touch with your Excosoft contact person to start this transition and to make the move. And also, don't miss out, there will be an upcoming webinar about the way of translating in Skribenta Web. So as you have noticed, we are launching a set of webinars about different things to present new features and to present products, and also other types of streams of things that we think are valuable to present and discuss with you. So this is the first webinar actually in our series of webinars.